Hi everyone, this is Constellations here, and I'm really glad that I'm finally able to publish Baizhu Math Guide 1. I apologize for the long wait between the 2 weeks of the Diablo 4 beta as well as some of my personal life stuff. I wasn't really able to find the time to do this Baizhu Math. In fact, I couldn't even find. I barely found the time to complete my Genshin events and the Spiral Abyss in time. Like the most recent Spiral Abyss, just before the reset, right? I only managed to clear it half an hour before the reset. I kid you not. It's not a matter of like I couldn't clear it. It's more like I couldn't find the time to go do stuff like that. In fact, I think I missed some of the weekly stuff like the TCG. Anyway, that's fine. So just that for a quick intro. So for Baizhu Math Guide, obviously we're gonna do the usual. We're gonna talk about Baizu's base stats. We are gonna talk about these are not updated. The figures in the table are not updated. So please ignore those. Okay. Now I'm obviously going to talk about his talents, his passive, his signature weapon, his constellations, and then we'll have a constellation conclusion along with a kit summary. I'll talk about Baizu's comps as well as what will be in the Baizu video series. Now you'll notice that this is slightly shorter than the usual for my Math Guide 1. That's because I have decided to collapse or merge some of the information into the talent session. So for example, when I talk about the talent, the E talent, for example, I will cover the energy generation as well as ICD. So instead of them being a separate section, I've decided to just all put it into the talent section itself. All right. So without further ado, let me go dive right in and talk about Baizu. That was a bit longer than I would have wanted my intro to be. Now, Baizu base stats, I'm just gonna go ahead and say this. Okay, they are bad. For a character who is obviously having HP as his most important stat, even though he has no HP scaling on his damage, but he has HP scaling on his shields and his healing, right? He only has 13.3k HP. This is one of the lowest I've ever seen for a 5-star character that has HP scaling in the kit, some form of HP scaling in the kit. Because the typical amount is 14.5k to 15 or even 15.5k. Like Hu Tao has 15.5k. Yelan, I can't remember who is the other character that has 15k HP. Yeah, I think it's Nilou and Dehya, if I'm not wrong. And then 44.5k HP is characters like say Zhongli, Yelan, I think. Don't quote me if I'm wrong, but just to state a few examples, this is the typical range of a 5-star character with HP scaling in their kit. They usually have 14.5k HP to 15.5k HP. Or I should say 15k HP, because 15.5k HP is only one character, I think, it's only Hu Tao. So if you compare Hu Tao's base HP versus Baizu's base HP, it's a big difference. That's 2.2k HP difference, that's a lot. So I gotta say I'm a little surprised that his base HP is so low, because it just means that you have to spend more, you need to get a higher HP percentage to hit the minimum or rather the maximum HP that you want for his A4 passive as well as his signature weapon effect. So yeah, I don't understand why his base HP is so low. Okay. Now next is the base attack. Base attack is 193. Kinda expected for a HP scaling character, but at the same time you gotta realize that his attacks do not have any HP scaling. HP scaling is only on his defensive measures. So his damage is not gonna be great. But I guess it's fine because we'll probably want him to build him more for a reaction. But at the same time, he doesn't have any EM stats, right? And the fact that his HP is lower means that you need more HP stats. And that takes away from your EM. So, I don't like this, to be honest. I really don't like this. Now, base defense is 500. It's also one of the lowest I've seen for a Catalyst user. I mean, Catalyst users usually have low defense. That's fine. But this is one of the lowest. So the impact is there when you're using him as a driver. If you're using him as an on-field driver, he's going to take more damage. So maybe that's why his whole concept is based on the shield being able to heal and stuff, right? Because he's basically having low defense so that you are able to see his heal working. Healing work. Maybe? Yeah. Anyway, HP Ascension stat, that's quite expected for a healer, a 5-star HP scaling healer. Okay. Now let's talk about his signature go back to talk about the talents. Sorry. Now let's talk about the talents, right? First off, normal attack talent. There's no real need to use his normal attack talent unless you're using him as a solo Dendro driver, but I don't see why you wouldn't use Nahida then. Nahida obviously has a better Dendro application, but I'll talk more about that later. Okay. Now, even if you're using him as on-field driver, investing in his normal attack talent wouldn't make much of a difference. I guess there's no harm in getting into level 6, but that's where I'll go because the new Wheelie boss material is better used on other talents. Otherwise, just keep it at level 1, it's perfectly fine. Let's talk about his E next. So Baizhu's E basically unleashes a spirit snake that hits 3 times. Each time that it hits, it does 134.6% damage. So versus a single enemy, it's not too bad. But again, if you remember how his kit works out, you're not going to have enough space to stats-wise to get like a high CR, CD, or even a high attack because his base attack is very low. So I guess it's just good to have, but it's not going to be like great. Yeah. More important thing is the heal. But before I go on to talk about heal, I need to talk a little about how the spirit snake works. So it's actually evenly spread amongst enemies. So 3 times for 1 enemy, 2 plus 1 on 2 enemies. So you think of it like a chain lightning, right? Goes from A to B and back to A. And then you have 1 each for 3 plus, so it'll basically ABC. But this is capped at 3. So if you have 5 enemies, A, B, C, D, E, it only hits ABC, for example. D and E doesn't get hit. So that's how his E hits work. Now, upon return, he actually heals all nearby party members once, not just the active characters or active character. So that's good. I actually like the fact that he's able to heal all the nearby party members once. Now, as for ICD and application, if you remember what I mentioned, I have decided to put it into the talent itself, okay, talent section. So his E applies 1 U of Dendro. He has standard ICD, so 3 hits / 2.5 seconds, and a AoE of 0.6 meter radius. So for reference, right, Yae's turret is 0.5 meter radius. So basically, without anymore putting enemies to stay together, it's pretty much single target. In fact, even you have multiple enemies put together, it will be tough to hit more than 2 each hit. Because if you really think about it, it's a very, very small radius. 3 is possible, but very tough. And I can tell you, it really depends on enemy size. If you are talking about 2 huge V-Shapes, right, there's no way you will get the AoE to hit the second V-Shape. So there's no quadratic scaling for his E. So when his E goes between 2 V-Shapes, you hit A once, you hit B once, you hit A again, right? But each time you hit A, it doesn't hit B. That's what I mean by there's no quadratic scaling. Alright? Now, in terms of targeting, his E goes for the nearest target within 10 meter. So in a way, I guess you can control it rather than it being totally random. So for example, in the scenario I talk about, right, you have 5 enemies, right? Now, ABC got hit by your first E. Let's say, assuming you have a second E, be it C1 or sacrificial fragments. You can actually do like a dash around to make sure that D and E are the enemies that are nearest to you, so that you apply Dendro to all of them. Okay? So that's what I mean by there's a way to control it. Is it efficient? Is it great? Not that great. Not that efficient. But it's doable. It's possible. It's feasible. Now, energy generation wise, it's 3.5 particles. So what I mean by 3.5 particles is that it's always 3 particles. There's a 50% chance for an additional particle. So basically it's 3 to 4. But given the percentage ratio of it occurring, for math wise, I usually just take this as 3.5 for easy calculation of the ER required in future math guides. Now, the 3 hits on his E is important for his C1 and C2 because those 2 cons will allow more application. And I'll talk more about it in the Constellation section. Yeah, I mean, if you understand how ICD works, the more hits you have, the better. I mean, it's better than having 1 hit. Okay. Now let's talk about his Q. His Q is pretty much his main feature per se as a character. You'll see this from the C3 and C5, whichever talent comes first. Now, Baizhu's Q basically generates a weak Dendro shield. Now, it's definitely a Dendro shield because it has additional damage absorption for Dendro elements. This Dendro shield gets generated every 2.5 seconds and it lasts for 2.5 seconds. So, in essence, right, it's a shield that kind of constantly aspires and refreshes at the same time. And the interesting about this Q is that it procs a damage instance under the following conditions. Not just a damage instance, it's actually a heal as well on the active character. So first condition is that the existing shield either expires or is shattered. So either it expires at the 2.5 second mark, or it gets shattered because of a combat situation. Okay? So this is condition number 1. Condition 2 is a new shield being generated when an existing shield is present, which is the ideal scenario where your shield doesn't break. So after 2.5 seconds, you generate a new shield, and at the same time, your previous shield also expires at the same time. Yeah, so that allows you to create another damage instance plus heal. So this is how it works. Damage instance, like I said, there is no HP scaling. It's 165% attack. Likewise, at level 12, this is the amount. For the shield healing, it's not too bad. It's not as high as his E. But you gotta know this is like constant healing. So this is pretty decent. Shield is weak because if you look at the percentage, you understand what I'm saying. It's only 1.3% of the max HP, plus like a flat figure of 100 plus. So basically, one hit breaks your shield. And if you receive a heavy hit from say like a lava chair, and your shield breaks at the same time, you will actually be sent flying. So there's no resistance to interruption in that scenario. This is how it always has been for when your shield breaks on a very high interruption hit. Okay, so do bear this in mind. Now the Q lasts for 14 seconds and is on a 20-second cooldown with 80 energy cost. In terms of ICD and application, his Q applies 1U. Each time this damage instance here, it applies 1U. There's actually no ICD on this, and it has a 1.5 meter radius. So the AoE for his Q hit is bigger than his E, but it's really small too if you think about it, because it's only 1.5 meter radius. So even with enemies sticking together, right, you'll still be hitting at most 2 to 3 per hit, depending on enemy size. What I can say is that I guess it's slightly easier to hit 3 enemies instead of versus the E. It's easier to hit 3 enemies on his Q versus his E, but it's still gonna be very tough. Okay. So you based on me explaining his E and Q, I think you should be able to see that Baizu's AoE is not that great, right? Yeah. Now for the no ICD portion, I can tell you guys, it really only matters at C6 where he can trigger additional Q procs through his C6 effect, because pre-C6 is generated every 2.5 seconds anyway, so nothing special about it. It's not like Nahida's E, where it's 1.5 second, no ICD. That makes a real difference. Okay. So in terms of passive, these are Baizu's passive. So I'll quickly talk about his A1, A4, and his utility passive. So Baizu A1 is pretty straightforward. He gains different effect according to the current HP of your current active character. So when HP is less than 50%, or when the active character's HP is less than 50%, Baizu gains 20% healing bonus. When it is equal to or more than 50%, Baizu gains 25% Dendro damage bonus. So effectively, this is very straightforward and passive. If your active character needs more healing, Baizu gets more healing bonus. If they don't need more healing, Baizu gets Dendro damage bonus instead. So I guess this is nice. But again, remember, Baizu's attacks do not have HP scaling. So this Dendro damage bonus isn't like fully utilized per se. It's not ideal per se. If this was say something like EM, additional EM, it'll be very, very nice. But yeah, it is what it is. Okay. Now let's talk about A4 passive. Characters who are healed by similar shields will gain the Year of Verdant's Favor effect, where each 1000 max HP that Baizu possesses that does not exceed 50,000 will increase the Burning, Bloom, Hyper Bloom, and Burgeon reaction damage dealt by these characters by 2%. While the Aggravate and Spread reaction damage dealt by these characters will be increased by 0.8%. Now, one important thing to see here is that it's characters who are healed by similar shields. It doesn't look like overheal will be included or overflow healing will be included. By what I mean by overflow healing, if you have watched my previous video about how Dehya might eventually become meta, I actually talk about this. So basically, if it works like Clam, Ocean Hue Clam, the artifact set, where even when at max HP the shield triggers and that heal is still included in this effect, right? Then it's good. Otherwise, if it doesn't include overflow healing, you might run into a situation where you don't get healed in time. You don't get healed in time for this. Your active character, if HP is full at the time, you don't get healed in time, and the effect may not be 100% uptime. Well, the good thing is that it lasts for 6 seconds, so you have a bit of breather. Because every 2.5 seconds for a single shield, right? So you have a 50% chance, or rather, I should say that you have 2 chances to make sure that you do get a heal on the similar shields. So you're starting to see that like balloon related reaction should be good for Baizhu. With the constant blue and explosion, you should be able to trigger this reliably, but I need to do the deep dive to be sure. But this is how I see it. This is a key feature of Baizhu, because this allows him to buff Dendro reaction damage. Because if you look at just heals and shield, right, it's not going to be like a significant contribution for a 5-star support. Like even Zhongli, right, with his shield, strong shield, right, he only gets really good when after the buff he does have the resistance strat, which helps with damage. I'm not saying that it's not good pre-buff, okay? I'm just saying that the having a certain form of damage buff is always good for a shielder or healer. And I'll talk more about his Dendro application at kit summary, but basically, if you build Baizhu as a full support with 50k HP, you can actually achieve a 100% burning and bloom related reaction damage bonus, assuming you're able to keep this effect on 100% uptime. Or for Agra spread, meaning aggravate or spread, you get a 40% damage bonus. Now, these are flat damage bonuses on the base damage that do not scale with EM. They're still pretty good. And aggro spread only has 40%, but I can tell you it's a bigger impact, because aggro spread, the way the formula works is that before EM, the base value is bigger, it's higher. So that 40% versus that 100%, you probably end up kind of on par. Yeah. And if you have something coupled, if it's coupled together with something like C2 Nahida's effect, which for aggravate and spread is, if I didn't remember, only a 30% defense reduction. And as for the blooms, is the ability to crit, 20% chance to crit with 100% CD. So those coupled together with this is going to give you a really, really good synergy. But again, remember, it's provided you're able to keep this up at 100% uptime. Yeah. It does feel like Hyper Bloom would be a good comp for Baizhu, based on this, because you get the self-inflicted damage from the Bloom Seeds or the Hyper Bloom. At the same time, you also get the aggro spreads. But yeah, I'll probably give it a bit more thought for this. Now, when Baizhu, the next passive, which is usually the utility passive, when Baizhu is in the party, interacting with certain harvestable items will heal your current active character for 2.5% of Baizhu max HP. So basically, I mean, this is a nice overworld utility. You heal your character without using your E or Q. But it's nothing too significant, really. Most overworld content, I guess it's fine, right? You really need healing, we just TP to the Statue of 7. Yeah? But I guess it's just good to have. Okay? Now let's talk about his signature weapon. For 3 seconds after using an elemental burst or creating a shield, the equipping character can gain the Primordial Jade Regalia effect. This is a signature weapon effect. If you are wondering what his signature weapon base stat is HP percentage. No, what a surprise, right? So I think it's 49.6% HP at level 90. Okay, so more HP bonuses for him. But again, his base HP is a little on the low side, so you're probably gonna need more HP percentage on Baizhu from the artifact stats. But I have not worked out the artifact stats permutation yet. I'll probably do that in the next math guide. Yeah. Let's going back to the weapon effect. So this Primordial Jade Regalia effect that you can that only lasts for 3 seconds. Okay. What it does is that it allows you to restore a 4.5 energy every 2.5 seconds. and you gain a 0.3% elemental damage bonus for your corresponding elemental type. So if you are using it on Baizhu, you get a Dendro damage bonus for every 1000 max HP that they process, which is up to 12%. So like it's not high, right? I mean it's just 12% Dendro damage bonus on R1. Yeah, it's kinda meh. But the good thing about the Primordial Jade Regulator effect is that it works even if you're off field. So if you think about it this way, then it's not too bad. But more importantly, I'll say that the signature weapon is very tailor-made for Baizhu, because the effect only triggers each time you create a shield or you use your Q. And the weapon substat is HP percentage. Yeah? Now, Baizhu Q lasts for 40 seconds. We get the first effect just from using Q. So in other words, you get 6 procs pre-C6. And that's 27 energy at R1, 39 energy at R5. Okay, let that sink in, okay? Before C6, this signature weapon at R1 already gives you 27 energy. At R5, you even get 39 energy. It's actually pretty high. But at C6, coupled with the C1 and C2 effect, you actually get additional 2 more of this, as well as 3 from C2. Okay? That's 11 procs, which is 49.5 energy at R1, 71.5 energy at R5. Which means at C6 R5, you don't even need any ER at all, or even any energy generation from E. Just energy from enemies will be enough. Yeah, it's a little insane. Okay, but to be fair though, my assumption here is that there's no cooldown for this Primordial Jade Regulator effect. Once you trigger it at 3 seconds, you do get the energy. Yeah? Because the additional instances from your E and your 3 from C2 for the C6 effect, those are gonna do additional procs that may be while you still have this effect. Okay? Oh, and the other thing is that the combat situation does need to last a full rotation for your max number of procs. I mean, obviously, right, because we're talking about the entire duration itself of the kill. But this is still the most energy restoration I've ever seen. For reference, right, R5 Prototype Ember gives you 18 energy. Okay? Oh, and the elemental damage bonus, basically you need 40k HP to achieve the max damage bonus of 12% at R1 and 44% at R5. It's not 24%, it's 44% at R5. So yes, Baizhu's weapon doesn't scale in the typical 100% from R1 to R5. So it looks like Hoyoverse has learned from the failure of Kokomi's Donut. Because even R1 of Baizhu's weapon versus R5 Prototype Ember should fare better than R1 Donut versus R5 Prototype Ember in terms of relative comparison, based on what I can see from the stats here. Now, that being said though, R5 Prototype Ember is still a very good 4-star weapon for Baizhu, especially since Baizhu's attacks are not HP scaling pre-C6 anyway. I mean, even if it's HP scaling at C6, okay. So that's the reason why you see that C6 gives you a lot more energy. Okay, because even though Prototype Ember also gives you HP scaling, at C6 you immediately get this crazy amount of energy boost. So yeah, that's the selling point of it versus a R5 Prototype Ember. Like a C6 R1, you get 49.5 energy from your weapon effect, versus R5 Prototype Ember, which is 18 energy. But like I said, R5 Prototype Ember is still a very good 4-star weapon for Baizhu. Yeah, so don't need to worry about pulling for the signature weapon if you're not interested in it. Especially if you're very averse to weapon banner, then the R5 Prototype Ember is a good option. Okay. Now let's move on and talk about the Constellations. C1 is basically getting an additional charge on his E. Actually, it should say this, right? Yeah. E gains 1 additional charge. You know what? Fine. Let's just do it this way. If you remember, because of the copyright issue, I try to refrain from putting the E and the Q. But I think the live stream would have mentioned it. By the way, I have not looked at the live stream yet. The 3.6 live stream. I haven't had the time to do so. I did at least look at the PV video. The one that's like a few minutes. Now, personally, I always like having an additional charge of E. While it does extend rotation, it provides more application and also energy generation. And in Baizhu's case, heals for all party members too. Along with the synergy with C6, this is even better. In fact, Baizhu Constellation is very similar to Alhaitham, because the Alhaitham C6 unlocks more value on his C1 and C2. And it's exactly the same for Baizhu. Baizhu C6 unlocks more value for C1 and C2. Like unlocking the true value of C1 and C2. Yeah. Alright, so that's his C1. Now his C2, what his C2 does is actually pretty interesting. When your own active character hits a nearby opponent with their attacks, Baizhu will unleash a E splice effect. So this E, what it does is that it only does one attack. It's 250% attack. It does a Dendro damage, yeah, and also heals for 20% of your E's heal. Yeah, sorry for the cut off. I forgot to correct this. I miscorrecting this. Now this damage obviously is also considered as elemental skill damage, and it can be triggered once every 5 seconds. So it's kind of like, you can think of it like Cookie's C4. Yeah, you get additional instance or pro or application every 5 seconds. And let's be honest, the C2 effect is mainly for the additional Dendro application, because the 250% attack sounds decent, but you're going to be HP on Baizhu, so yeah. Even if you're not HP, it's EM. Like attack and CRCDs are it's lowest priority for Baizhu. Even if this is considered elemental skill, it's actually fine, because this C2 guarantees you Dendro application and reaction, because its base E is 3 hits. So what I'm trying to say here is that you do a base E, 3 hits, when you go switch to your own active character and hit a nearby opponent with active character. Oh, sorry. Its own active character, so it doesn't say other than Baizhu. So if Baizhu uses the E and you have C2, you will get 2 Dendro applications. 2 instances of Dendro application, because it's 4 hits. Okay. So this C2 is really good for Dendro application. It has synergy with C6 as well as his signature weapon. Yeah. I'll talk more about it in C6. So C3 is increasing the Q level of his tree. Like I said, Q is his main feature because of the shield and heals, so no surprise there. For C4, now his C4 basically gives you 80 EM for the entire team for 15 seconds after his Q is used. So the condition is very easy. There's no real additional condition. You don't need to be staying within a field. It's also a very long duration, 15 seconds. So it's nice to see that there's an EM buff again on C4, especially Yao Yao, who I was quite disappointed that there was no EM team buff. I mean, even 60 EM team buff is good. But I have a problem with Baizhu C4 because it's only 80 EM. Compared to Kolei or DMC, who gives you 60. And C4 Tighnari gives you 120 EM. So I really don't see why they have to make C4 Baizhu only 80 EM. It feels bad. I guess the silver lining is that it's 15 seconds or 12 seconds or instead of 12 seconds or shorter. I guess that's the benefit of it, right? I guess it's good for Cyno. But Baizhu still has the problem of AOE though. But technically speaking, if I were to compare with the existing Dendro options, he actually might be the best option for Cyno. Although still not the most ideal. Unfortunately, still not the most ideal. Huh? Okay. Anyway, C5 is the worst considered as usual, increases the level of Z by 3, and now we talk about C6. C6 is pretty interesting. C6 increases the damage dealt by his Q by 8% of Baizhu max HP. So this is kind of low, right? Only 8%. But there's this effect here where when your E or your C2 effect, C2E damage effect hits opponents, there is a 100% chance of generating one of holistic okay, his Q, I don't know how to pronounce the whole thing. His Q's similar shield. And this effect can only be triggered once by each E or C2E effect. So HP scaling for his Q damage, first off, is decent, but it's not fantastic. And I know a lot of people are looking at this effect and say that C6 is bad. But I can tell you the next portion, this portion that I just mentioned, is the true value of his C6. Because effectively you get 5 additional Q shields, which translates to 5 additional Dendro application instances, and healing as well from his C6 provided combat lasts through the full duration. Why do I say it's 5 additional Dendro application? Because you get 2 from E, 3 from his C2 effect. C2 effect is every 5 seconds, so you are guaranteed that Dendro application. And as for the 2E, you're also guaranteed it because 3 hits for the each E. No matter what, you will be able to hit. Okay? So with this, I'll say that his Dendro application is actually one of the strongest. But he's unfortunately very limited by his AoE. In fact, his Dendro duration is also one of the longest. I mean, obviously Nahida is longer, but Nahida's duration is gone the moment the enemy dies. But not for Baizu's case. Okay? So Constellation conclusion wise, I'll say C1, C2 is decent. C4 has what I would want from 5-star Dendro, but the EM value is a little low. While C6 is good, but is it really required for 5-star support? I guess even for Cyno you don't really need it though. Yeah, even for Cyno you don't really need this. I mean, more instances is nice, but it doesn't change his skill duration, you know? It doesn't extend his skill duration. That's why I say C6 doesn't feel really required for 5-star support, to be honest with you guys. Yeah. So let's talk about the kit summary. You'll notice that I have no TLDR session because when you look at the kit summary in the Baizhu section and as well as the Constellation conclusion, that's pretty much your TLDR. I don't really want to repeat myself. I'll try to make the video shorter or so. So let's go straight into the kit summary. So after me going through all these, right, talking about his entire kit, his talents, his passive, his constellations, his signature weapon, prototype emblem as well, a little slight mention of it. So how is Baizhu? At C0, his Dendro application is decent for off-field character and good for on-field driver. At C6, his Dendro application is good to very good for off-field and very good for on-field driver. Pretty much on par with Nahida, by the way. A C6 Baizhu. A C0 Nahida. Yeah, I'm sorry, but that's the case. But this is for single target or 2 small enemies. The more enemies you have, the more he falls off. So Nahida and even Yao Yao has better AoE. Because Yao Yao's bunnies, they spread Dendro application real fast, provided they are targeting words correctly. Okay? And this is in terms of his Dendro application. Now let me go back to his base stats. His base stats are pretty bad. For 5-star character, 5-star HP character, he only has 13k HP compared to the usual 14.5 to 15k HP on HP scaling characters like Yelan, Nilou, Dehya, Hu Tao, etc. His base attack and defense are all very low too, which is bad because his attack has no HP scaling pre-6. His low defense also means every attack hurts him more when he's the driver. But like I said, maybe it helps with his A4 passive. You know, make sure that you always be able to trigger the A4 passive. You always be able to actually heal. So I'll say, at initial glance, I'll say going full HP and EM with him will probably be the go-to option for blue-rated comps. Spread may need some CR/CD2 as good to have, but I will still put full HP and EM as like the focus for him anyway. Now, based on this first analysis, without doing detailed math comparison, right? I mean, just looking at the cons, right? While C1 and C2 are nice, they're not really too groundbreaking. They're not. I mean, the C2 having additional Dendro application is really nice. I like it. I'll say that he's good enough at C0, in my opinion, especially if coupled with another Dendro in the Airgrass spread comp. So you have characters doing spread damage and aggravate damage. Yeah, that's what I mean by Airgrass spread comp. Now, however, if I'm asked whether Nahida or Baizhu for someone who doesn't have either, since they're both available in 3.6, Nahida rerun is coming, I would say to go for Nahida. Nahida has a much stronger Dendro application both in rate of application and AoE. Her spread damage on E is also very good when built ultimately. I easily hit 60k on her E procs. Counter argument for Baizhu would be that his A4 passive provides a buff. And while that buff is really nice, single target is still very restrictive in generating bloom seeds or even spreads, especially when new mobs spawn. Yeah? Now another counter argument for Baizhu would be that his heals and the way his A4 passive works have better potential in future potential meta. You know the meta that I talked about in the Dehya video, Dehya future meta video. But in a sense, I guess you can say that Yao Yao can do the same. heals wise, with better Dendro application in terms of AoE. Although Yae doesn't give you that buff, right? So now, do you now see why I said that his A4 passive is his key feature? Do you realize why I say his A4 passive is going to be his most important feature, like the reason to use him? His raison d'etre or something like that, that phrase for it. Now, personally, I will probably start at C0 Baizhu, unless I'm interested in getting more Cave icons. Also, I was low-key hoping that Baizhu would be the ideal. Okay, I shouldn't say great. I should put it this way. Okay, I was low-key hoping that Baizhu would be the ideal support for Cyno's long Q duration. Duration-wise, it's actually okay if you think about it. In fact, if you include Nahida's whole death, enemy dying, and Dendro application is gone kind of situation in there, right? You can even argue to say that Baizhu is better for Cyno than Nahida. So if you're a Cyno main, you don't have Nahida, you don't have Baizhu, you're trying to decide which is better for your Cyno, it's gonna be Baizhu. But you just need to remember that the AoE is not there for Baizu's what do you call that? Application. But if your Cyno is dishing out enough damage and you move from enemy to enemy, your Dendro application is actually still going to be there. You're still going to be able to apply the Dendro and get your spread. Aggravate. It's just that maybe certain hits, or rather the first hit, you may not get the Dendro application. Some stuff like that. You don't get the quicken / spread effect, aggravate effect. Very situational, or very dependent on your combat situation. But that's what I'm trying to say here, okay? So he's not the ideal support for Cyno's long Q duration, but he is still the best option. Let me put it this way, okay? Still the best option for Cyno. To be fair, I should add this statement because I don't want to give it the wrong impression here. I do think that Baizhu is still the best option for Cyno. It's just that he's not like the most perfect support per se. Like if Baizhu has good AoE along with the current duration that he has, right, it would be great for Cyno. But he's already doing heals and shields. Something has to give. Okay? So what is being sacrificed here? His AoE. You notice is his AoE is being sacrificed here in return for the heals and shields, basically. Yeah. But he's still the best option for Cyno. I gotta say, he's still the best option for Cyno. Okay? So for all you Cyno mains out there, yeah, Baizhu is gonna be a good one for you. Because the next option is Nahida. But Nahida, unless you're fighting against boss, right? The moment the enemies die, you're screwed. You don't have your Dendro application anymore. Yep. Okay. Now let's talk about Baizu's comp. Baizhu can fare well in most Dendro meta comps. I can simply say this. Though you need to sacrifice AoE. Unless he's the driver, then it can be better managed. But honestly, at the moment, Yae can pretty much do what he does. With just mainly the lack of the buff from his A4 passive and his C4. Oh, and some weak shields, I guess. So it really depends on whether you're willing to forgo those. If not, then pulling for him is okay. It's definitely not a typical Liu broken level per se. Wait, sorry, I should add that Cyno portion here, okay? To be fair. However, he is likely the best Dendro support for Cyno. So this makes him great in Cyno comps. Yeah. Alright. So no TLDR this time because number 5 and number 6 is pretty much my TLDR here. Okay. I covered a lot in number 5. And number 6 itself is more to give you guys a view on his comps options. I mean, he pretty much fills the role of a Dendro, so any comp with a Dendro role, he can do it. Of course, whether or not he's like the most ideal really depends on whether you're looking for AoE. Because his AoE is not strong. But for Cyno, he is a great support because of his Q lasting longer duration. There's no conditional application involved in terms of the conditional Dendro application involved in terms of like enemy can't die. If enemy die, you're screwed. So yeah, this is where Baizhu shines as the best Dendro support for Cyno in this case. Not to mention his C4 also gives EM, right? Without any condition, but it's still I really feel bad about it being AT-EM. Okay, so anyway, this is the Baizhu video series. We finished the first detailed key analysis. I'll talk about Baizhu comms next. I guess I'll probably do a grass spread comp and maybe one for Cyno for the comps, just so that I can work out some of the figures and also to do comparison for artifact and weapon comparison. Because the Baizhu comps are actually very varied. Like if you want to go full EM reaction damage from him, it's also possible. You can also go like a full support for Cyno, also doable. And also you can even try to get a bit of spread damage in there, right? I mean it's a grass spread comp. You should try to get some spread damage in there. Yep. And obviously we will do the detailed constellation refinement comparison too. So good news is that, like I said, he is the second. Both he and Kave is in the second phase of 3.6. So that gives me more time to do all these math guides for you guys. And I do apologize again. Once again, I apologize for the long wait previously. Yeah. But yep, I'm really happy to be doing this again. No joke. I mean, this takes effort, but I'm still pretty glad to do this again. All right. So thanks everyone for watching. I hope this video has been helpful to you guys in terms of the perspective that I'm offering. And if you like the content, remember video and click subscribe for more. Bye.